Hi, everybody. This is Kim Ramirez with Waypoint. I'm stepping in on behalf of Randy MacLean this morning. He got caught up in a meeting and is running late, so I do apologize for that. But I'm going to start by showing you some reports until Randy can step into the meeting. I'm going to take a stab at what I feel are the reports that he would be showing you this morning as the 5 most important reports in Waypoint to help you with your profitability. So if you can see my screen right now, I have Acme Distributing up, showcasing Acme Distributing, which is our sample, sample customer. I'm going to just set the scope of the time for 1 year, and I'm going to start by showcasing the comparative P&L. I'm sure everybody is likely familiar with this report, but it is a very powerful report because it is set by how we set the scoping, the radio button next to the scoping control. And if you can see the report name here, we've got an icon of a radio button next to the report name, which means that wherever we set our radio button next to any of the scoping controls, then the comparative P&L will display the content of the scoping control and give us a P&L for each node within that control. So as an example, if I set it for fiscal year, in this case 2010, and I can set the level down here, the detailed level, for either 1 or 2 levels deep, and that will give us detail 1 to 2 levels deep as to where we're setting the control. So in this case, 1 level deep would give us a P&L by quarter, 2 levels deep would give us a P&L by month. I'm going to set it for 1 level deep and run it for the year so we can see a P&L per quarter for 2010. The reason I'm starting with the time control is to show you that for the full year, we've got all 4 quarters here. For the full year, we've got the $20.4 million in invoice revenue. And if I was to set that radio button next to the branches control and run the same report, we're going to see that $20.4 million broken out at the branch level. And we can do that again on any of the scoping controls. So $20.4 million in revenue, and this is then broken out at the branch level. And again, we can put the radio button next to any control to get that detail. At the bottom of this report, we have some additional metrics, in this case broken out by branch, the number of orders, the number of invoices, the number of lines, number of shipments. So those are the metrics, again, related to each branch for the year. That we can manage by looking at these counts. The other item that I'm pretty sure that everyone's familiar with, but just want to showcase now is NBC, net before compensation. This metric allows us to see the net profit that we have incurred before we're paying our sales force. So sales comp is listed below NBC. So we can see the profit we're making before we pay our sales reps. And then we can see our sales comp row here, our total cost to serve, including sales compensation, and our net profit dollar amount bottom line. So that is the comparative P&L. The next report that I'd like to showcase is the NBC ranking report. This is another very popular report in the system. And basically, this report shows us all of our customers ranked on NBC. We've got the columns we're looking at here are the revenue, so each customer's total revenue for the year. We have the revenue per invoice. We've got our gross profit dollars. We have our gross profit dollars per invoice. And we have our gross margin in this column here. We have our total expenses for the year by customer, our expense dollars per invoice, our expense rate, which is very important because we want to make sure that our expense rate is less than our gross margin here. Gross margin and gross profit dollars are the operating cash for the period, and so we want to make sure that our expenses don't exceed our operating cash. We then have our NBC dollars listed in this column here. We have an accumulated column for NBC here, so we can see as an example how many customers make up our first $1 million of NBC and what customers those are. We then have our NBC rate in this column here. We have our total number of invoices for the period, and then we have our percentage of those invoices that are negative NBC, so our money-losing invoices. So this is our net before the net before compensation, the NBC ranking report. And if we go all the way to the bottom, this is where we can see our money-losing accounts. So NBC, the negative NBC accounts listed at the bottom here. And in Waypoint, whenever you see a name of anything, a customer, a rep, a vendor, or a product, you can always right-click on that name and get a sub-listing of reports related to that specific name. So that's the NBC ranking report. The other report that I would like to show is the credits and below cost report. So in this report, this shows us a listing of the first section here, are clean sales. And we've got, what that means is the sales that we're making excluding all returns and all below cost sales. So we've got, in this case for Statoil Marketing, we have $810,000 of revenue. We've got our gross profit dollars, our operating cash, and then we've got our NBC. We then have the return section here. So for Statoil Marketing, we have $686 in returns for the year. So that's reducing our revenue by $686. We've got a reduction in gross profit of $198, and we have a reduction of NBC of $482. Then we have a below cost section here where we've got, actually there's a zero revenue for Statoil, but we have a negative gross profit, reduction of gross profit of $1,364. We also have a reduction of NBC of $3,110. So then the net with the returns and the below cost sales, we have a net then of $809,000 and so forth due to returns and below cost. And we can see in areas where, let's see, I'm trying to find a customer where it's a substantial loss. Here we have, in this customer here, we have clean sales of $159,000. We've got returns of 78, and then we have a net of 81,000 in revenue and 13,000 gross profit, 9,000 NBC. So where we originally had about 21,000 of NBC dollars, we have reduced that down to 9,000. So this is a good report for managing your returns and your below cost, because they are costly. There's a lot of paperwork involved in returns, and this report will provide that information. I see that Randy has joined the webinar. So Randy, I'm actually going to turn this back over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Kim. All right, so that's an excellent job on introduction to an important report. And one of the things that we've noticed as we've been looking at what matters to our distribution clients is that the credits, when you look at that credit report, a company that has only a few customers is getting credits back from is going to be working at probably other things, but companies where they have a very large proportion of their customers generating those returns and credits generally have a policy issue that ought to be addressed, because those things can drain significant profits from the business, outsized profits. You can have customers that that have reasonably good revenues, but the impact of just a few returns can be devastating. You know, we have a customer at $300,000 of business here, $15,000 of returns, cuts their profits by almost $14,000 out of 75. So it takes about 20% of the profits out of the account to have to handle returns that are only a small portion of that. And that's because you still have all the costs of the product when it went out, and then you have duplicate costs of bringing it all back in and handling the paperwork and so on. And it can be really significant. And there's some summaries down at the bottom that sort of illustrate that. You know, $20 million in revenue, $350,000 roughly, $340,000 in returns, cuts $470,000 out of the NBC of the company. And that's significant. You know, when the company, you know, it had a NBC of almost 2 million and it's down to 1.5 million because of all those returns. So one of the things that was really important to us was to make sure that we were thinking about the kinds of things that make a big difference to the performance of a distribution company, and that's why this report is so important on that front. Now, one of the other reports that is really important for every Waypoint user to be intimately familiar with is the comparative P&L report. And there's a couple of ways of getting at it, but just to show what it is in general, it's on the General tab, which has the comparative P&L. And as Kim showed you a little while ago, this report can be used to contrast and compare things that are on the that are in the scoping controls. But what's even more vital about this is this can be used to intersect different things in the data. So when you want to explore the data, you can find out what's going on in the data. And we're going to do a whole session, I think, next week, getting into the details of this. But just to what you're interested, it's easy enough to see. For instance, we'll say go by the branches here and see what's going on in the branches, or maybe maybe I'll pick the different distribution types and get a comparative P&L on that. But I can start to compare these things as we go forward. So maybe I just want to take a look and see what's going on with the direct ships, and I want to know how our direct ships break down by product line. Then I can take a particular, narrow it to just the direct ships and look at the different product lines that sell out here. And then when I look at this, I say, well, there's a lot of corrugated that's going out on this as a direct ship. And so I can start looking at the opposite direction. I can say, well, if I narrow it just to corrugated overall, how much of the corrugated is, you know, how does the corrugated as a total category break out? When I'm looking, when I narrow it to just the corrugated and take a look back at the distribution type, I can now say, oh, look, we got 5.5 million of corrugated goes out of warehouse, and there's the 1.9 million that we saw as direct ship, and I can get a sense looking at it from the other direction what's going on with the product. And with this, we can drill down and down and down and down to find out when I'm looking at a particular product category, a particular rep or whatnot, I can start to use the scoping controls to narrow down the amount of information I'm looking at, or the scope of the data I'm looking at, and then start looking at, you know, how much of this is going into that, how much of that is going into this, and that can give me some real insights into what's going on in the business. Now, Kim, did we cover the NBC ranking report?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and then how about the high volume accounts?
Not yet.
Okay, good. All right, that's good. You saved my favorite one for me. Now let me talk about the high volume accounts, and let me just talk about where this is coming from. The at the beginning of last year, we were going back and taking a deeper look at the utility Waypoint and how we can make sure that our clients were getting the most value out of what we're providing back to them. And thinking back to the days when, in my early 20s, I got my first branch at a company and started managing a branch, and have been through all the stages of management through my career right up to president. So at each stage, I was responsible for something, and I was trying to do a better job of it. I was trying to do my best to make it shine. And I started thinking back to what would I need if I really today I had to go out and I had to go to my sales reps, and I had to go think about, what I'd want them to do. And in terms of changing the nature of the company's performance, it really comes down to something philosophical, and that is the winner in any market is whoever it is that has the lion's share of the profit pool in that market, not the customers, the profit pool, because different customers make or lose money at different rates. And obviously what you'd like to do is have all of the biggest money-making customers and none of the money-losing customers in your territory. Well, how do you go about doing that? Sometimes whether a customer is money-making or money-losing has to do with the nature of the relationship and how much infrastructure that you burn up serving them for whatever it is that they purchase. And sometimes, that they could be just dysfunctional, or maybe they're just not all that good at what they do, and they sort of impose some of their chaotic disorganization on your organization, and you wind up picking up costs for them. And so not all customers are equal, but the real trick is the way a company becomes maximum profitable and has the most cash flow is to basically have more of the really good customers and fewer of the not so good customers. And so as a salesperson, if I'm a branch manager, what am I going to do about that? And so we started to look at which customers have the most potential to make a significant contribution, and by extension, which customers, if we work on them hard, are we going to get a better return than somebody else that we're going to work on hard? Obviously, you can work really hard on a very small account, and even if they double their business, it's peanuts. It doesn't make any difference to your bottom line for the amount of effort you put in. You put the same amount of effort to do a larger, more customer that has more volume, then you have an opportunity to make more impact. And so we put together two reports on this tab, and one is the high volume accounts, and the other is the regular accounts. And it's kind of the same report, but it only the high volume accounts only lists the subset of customers that produce above average operating cash or cash flow for the company. So in terms of this report, there is a number of things that make this report special, one of which is that there's a lot of statistics and whatnot at the bottom of the report that give you a lot of insights into the nature of how you do business and what the profit rates of those things are. And the table that I'm particularly interested in is this first table at the bottom, which basically reports on some segmentation that we did on the customers. So the purpose of segmentation, of course, is so that you can have a lot of customers that come together that work on a particular, that they look the same in some way, so you can work a particular program against them, and you can use the same program for all the customers in that group. It's kind of a management trick. But the issue that most people have in doing segmentation is that they can only segment by the things they can see. What zip code are they in? Are they in, a contractor? Or are they a builder? Are they, a medical supply place? Whatever it is, or how big are they? And when we started doing our research, we found there was no correlation to profitability, profit performance, or any of the dynamics that that drive profit through any of those dimensions. And so we realized that if we wanted to understand which customers were most valuable, which customers had the best potential to move forward, we really had to look into the numbers. And so we did segmentation by profit value, and this is one of the things that's very unique in Waypoint, and it gives our clients an advantage because other people just can't get this information. They just can't get this kind of segmentation. And so they have no way of matching programs that you may run against this segmentation, and they don't have an effective way of using the same types of things that are going to give them the same results that you can get using these specific numbers. And so what we did is we segmented all the customers into several categories, and I'll come back to the bottom in a moment. But looking at the report, we have the revenue, we have the gross profit and the gross margin, and the average amount of gross profit or operating cash on an invoice. We have the expenses and what percentage of revenue is burned up in expenses for that account and service in the account, and the NBC line and what percentage of revenue gets to the NBC line. Then we have two columns here where we can group the customers, and the high leverage accounts, the blue blocks, can overlap the other ones, but the other 5 categories are exclusive. You're only in one of the 5 categories, and I'll explain those categories shortly. Then we have the total number of invoices. What percentage of those invoices are money-losing invoices? And this is vital because the way that money is made is by having more of what you do make you money than the stuff that you do that loses money. Changing that proportion is the golden key to managing a company in a new direction that outperforms the competition or outperforms its history. It's basically recognizing you need to have that some of the stuff you do flat out loses you money, and it's a lot. In most companies, 62.5% of all invoices are money-losing invoices. It's an enormous amount of invoices. Fortunately, they don't lose as much as your big money-making invoices make you, so you wind up staying in business. But changing that ratio means that using just regular type margins or sometimes margins below what other people use can make you a lot more money than anybody else makes. And so recognizing a customer, even the best customer in this whole company in the whole year, 27.8% of their invoices were money-losing invoices, and the profit could be improved on this company. And recognizing it, they realized they were able to retain 96.7% of what they made, but they still lost $6,800 on the money-losing invoices. So you could have made even more money on the best account. And as you scroll down here, you can see this enormous profit potential in the business you've already done if you just didn't lose money on it. And that's part of what we want to do. The other thing is the number of days since we last saw the customer is an early warning system in case the customer's lost. And the last column says how frequently you deal with the customer. And here's a customer that buys, basically they bought 25 days last year, but you haven't seen them in 105 days. You probably lost this account. And somebody should get out and talk to them and bring them back before it's a permanent loss. And so you got an early warning system on some of these things. So we get some information about the activity. Now, let's get back down to that consolidated report at the bottom. What's important here is the high leverage accounts, and these ones are important because they make more money for every dollar sold than other accounts that you make. So for an example of that, when we look at the accounts here, on this top account, 26.5% or 26 cents of every dollar gets to the NBC line on this account, whereas this account down here, only 13 cents of every dollar gets to the NBC line. This account only 12 cents. This account 11.9. Only 8.7 cents of every dollar gets to the bottom line on this account. Meanwhile, we get 33 cents of every dollar to the bottom line on this account, or 28 cents. And so if you're trying to run, one of the best things that a company can do is make sure that its customers are buying everything that they can, or that we're selling everything you can to every customer. And obviously, getting more sales is good unless you're selling more sales into a money-losing account. And that's what most people don't have any visibility on. And so most times a penetration program will give you more gross profit, but it won't necessarily give you more profitability, especially if you're selling more products or more of your product into more money-losing situations. So the idea of the high leverage accounts is to know where you're going to get the best return. You're going to get 2 or 3 times as much of every dollar, that incremental dollar you sell into these accounts to the bottom line, as you do just to your regular good money-making accounts, never mind your money-losing accounts. And so the high HLAs, or the high leverage accounts, are the best accounts that you can use a market penetration program on. And that's a highly recommended thing. Second thing, class are the high efficiency accounts. Now these are the accounts where their expense rates are considerably below what most customers are. And when you look at it, up here, this account only costs you 3 cents on the dollar to service. This account only costs you 4.8 cents, as opposed to this account is 13 cents on the dollar to service the account. So these high efficiency accounts are the best accounts in the world for growth, because as you add accounts that are high efficiency accounts, what you do is you add more revenue and more gross profit and more NBC at a rate faster than you're adding expenses to the company. And so that means it's going to be that much longer before you have to lease another truck, that much longer before you need a new sales rep, that much longer before you need more people in the warehouse for your infrastructure in particular, than it would be if you brought in normal types of accounts, or worse, money-losing accounts that consume lots of your infrastructure but don't give you any operating cash to pay for it. And so you want to grow with these accounts. So these are the accounts you need to protect so they can't be taken away. These are the ones that get your concierge level customer service and your special phone number and that kind of thing, so they get service from you that they can't get from other people. And they're also the blueprint for customers you want to bring in. Schwartz Communications here does whatever they do, and they sell to certain kinds of customers doing what they do, and they have a direct competitor that sells the same thing they do, the same customers there that they're in a dogfight with. And that other company, their competitor, is probably also a high efficiency account. And so if you pick out one competitor that you don't have for every one of these high efficiency accounts, you basically will have 37 target accounts that are highly likely to join the group. That is 7.4% of your customers, but all of your bottom line, 104% of your NBC comes from these customers. And so those are the accounts that you want to target for growth, and that's why this is very, very important. The high potential accounts are accounts that you're working with and their expense rates are too high. If they were lower, then they could move into the high efficiency group, and then this is where you negotiate the nature of the relationship with them. We have more videos that talk about doing that. And then the profit drain accounts is the subset of accounts that are absolutely losing you money. And if you can't change the nature of how you work with the customer by either getting more margin to cover your costs or having a negotiating arrangement where they're consuming less of your infrastructure, then what you need to do is you need to replace them. You can't just fire Alarmax here and blow a $31,000 hole in your cash flow unless you go out and find another account that's going to give you $30,000, get another Kepco in. They'll give you $31,000 of cash flow that'll give you $18,000 NBC, as opposed to Alarmax that gives you $31,000 of cash flow and takes $4,000 off your bottom line. So you basically, if you can go find a direct competitor of theirs that does business on the same basis and bring them in, and then you can go back to the Alarmax. You don't fire them and just say, hey, we got new pricing for you, and we're really sorry, but we've been hit hard with costs, and unfortunately we can't give you the kind of pricing we give our more efficient customers that do business on, take business in bigger chunks. They get special pricing, and we'd love to give it to you if you could do that. But right now, all we can do is say that, that your pricing is going to have to change, or it's changing. And if they leave, you wound up, done one customer trade and got yourself about a $24,000 profit benefit for having done so. So at any rate, that was so that's what makes this report really important and can help you start to do some segmentation and really take advantage of some of the things that are in Waypoint that other people just don't have. Your competitors just don't have this information. They can't get this information. They don't understand the impact of some of these things, and they're probably working on other things that are not going to produce the kind of results that working on the opportunities that are exposed in these reports would. And so that's where we would really like to feel that we've delivered some great value to your company in helping you get on the track for some of those things to improve your results. Okay, we run up to 45 minutes, which was how much time I'd asked you to spend, but I don't mind sitting back and spending a little bit of time in Q&A if anybody has any questions. John, if you have the webinar, if you could unmute the participants so they can ask questions, I'd be happy to spend some time with you on that. Okay, here's a question. How do you get more detail about what these customers, what's going on with customers so you know what to change? Yeah. So here's one of the things that can cause that, or that can help with that. Any place in Waypoint that you see the name of a company, you can right-click and get more information. So for Raytheon, we can go and get a list of all of their invoices, and they're all ranked in order of profitability, so we can see, you know, which invoices made money and which invoice lost money. We can even see what was on the invoice. So we can pop those things up and get some insights into what's going on. We can also use that menu extensively to get a P&L for that particular account, or within the scope of the data that we provided, so we can see what the nature of the business is and what's really consuming things. So we've got $23,000 worth of operating cash on, looks like 27 orders, 27 invoices, and that's actually pretty reasonable. It's one of the reasons why they're up the top and they're so valuable to us. And if we compare that to somebody at the bottom that's doing that's not so good, we can see what's going on here. We've got a 20 margin, but we got 88 deliveries going on, a lot of invoices, 85 deliveries, 88 invoices. And so what's happening is we're spending more money servicing them. We can also take a look for them and see what we can take a look at the company and see what the not only the P&L, but we can see what we're selling them. So there's there's all the products that they bought and which products that we made money on and which products we lost money on. And of course, you can see some of these are small orders that are causing these things. We had a $9 sale to them. And that's kind of ridiculous. It wound up in this company, they lost $118 servicing that order. So so there's a way to go in and get more detail. So that was a good question. Next question. I think we've got a quiet bunch today. Okay. All right, here's another question. Where's the best place to start? Securing the core HLAs or attempting to replace or retrain the PDAs? I would say the first thing you always want to do in a business is you want to protect the core. It's very, very important to make sure that your core business doesn't go away. And remember, your company has been locked in a battle with your competition for years. You know, you win customers, you lose them to the competition, you win them back, and so on. And in an environment where everybody's just going after all the business you can, it's pretty much a level playing field. What we want to do is we want to tilt the playing field. We really want to tilt it both ways. We want to tilt it in the way that we go out and collect all the best, most profitable accounts in the marketplace, and we want to bring them in. Then we want to, and make sure that they don't go away. They can't be taken away. Then the second thing we want to do is we want to tilt the field so that the worst money losing customers don't want to do business with us anymore. And our competition is perfectly happy to have that business, not recognizing what a load it puts on them and why they're losing so much money. So we want to avoid the big money losing accounts that can't be reconciled or reformed in any way, and we want to focus in on the money making accounts. So what do we do? First of all, we've got to protect the core, and we've got to give them pricing and customer service and product availability and whatnot that is better than what our competition can. And the customer service is easy to do if you've got targeted customer service for your best core accounts. Special phone number, no auto attendant, first call on bids and quotes, emergency service when they need it in off hours or other things like that. Special pricing when they're doing a big bid for the big bid only. Those kinds of things we can provide. Technical and other support, and we can make really gold-plated customer service that goes out to a limited number of our customers. And in this particular company, when we look at the numbers at the bottom, there's 501 accounts here. That's just for corrugated. Let's just take a look at it for the whole business. About 800 active accounts in this business. And when we look at it, there's only 42 of them are HLAs, and 61 of them are HEAs, and there's quite a lot of overlap in here. So there's maybe 80 accounts out of 800, 1/10 of their customers, that they really want to put a moat around. You want to protect those really well and give them superior pricing. You can also look at the reports, and at the top here, the top account is a 33 margin. Anything over 8.9 is profitable in this account the way they do business. So if you needed to, you can take the price down and give up pay out a few dollars to buy insurance on the account to make it that much harder for someone else to compete with you, or to take them away in price alone. And if you're offering better service, better price, and high quality product, your competition can't beat you, especially when they're trying to protect their margins. They don't understand, how valuable this account is or how inexpensive it is to do business with this particular account. So the first thing you want to do is protect the core, and then try and build the core, finding more HEAs. And then while you're doing that, simultaneously, you want to go to your high profit accounts and move them into the HEA category by getting them to buy the same amount of product on fewer invoices and deliveries. And your profit drain accounts, you do the same. And if you can't reform the profit drain accounts, you can impose new pricing and whatnot as soon as you brought in some more HEAs, like I said a moment ago. Okay, other questions, comments? All right. So there's a question about the explanation of what these different account categories mean. And I just touched the most important ones in the interest of time. But what these categories are, these are the high leverage accounts, the blue ones. And these 42 accounts actually represent $1 million of NBC in the company that only has 1.6 million. And these accounts, like I said, you want to go after for penetration programs. High efficiency accounts, it's 8.2% of the customer base, represents 1.6 million in a company that only has 1.6 million in the bottom line. You want to protect and preserve them, and these are the accounts where you have room to reduce margins in some cases when they need special pricing for special projects, or you can reduce pricing gradually on them to put them into price brackets that the competition won't meet, and that helps build that wall around them. The high potential accounts are accounts that are not efficient enough yet to do any kind of pricing moves, and you want to work on them to bring them into line. Profit drains are money losing accounts. You want to change the nature of the relationship or trade them out by imposing parameters on them that would make them profitable. And you'll frequently find people here that have, quote, high volume, but they're eating you alive on transactions, and they're getting a much lower margin than regular customers are, but they're not earning it by being as efficient as other customers. They're just expecting you to pay. Deliver everything to them on their own silk pillow, and it's really expensive to do business with them. The other accounts here are the accounts that are not on these on this report. They're the regular accounts which are not high volume. And there's two categories in there. There's a regular plus, which are the money-making regular accounts. It's about 28% of the business here, 207 of them. They make about 166,000. So about 10% of the profit of the company, or 10% of the profitable business done in the HEAs is represented by this large group of accounts. And they're good to have because they're making contributions to the bottom line, because they're buying infrequently enough and large enough orders to be profitable, and that's good. The other group are the lower cash flow accounts. There's 403 of them, are 54, almost 55% of the business, more than half the customers, and they're actually draining $250,000 a year off the business. And the reason with these customers are a problem is because they're basically just buying enormous amounts of money losing, or producing enormous amounts of money losing orders. In fact, 81.5% of all of the invoices we write them lose money. Part of the reason for this usually is company has not yet recognized that there's a difference in the nature of these accounts. These accounts are these accounts are designed, these accounts just don't do business in the same way. But what happens is we try to run them through the infrastructure of the accounts that, place orders on a regular basis and come and get product. So you're going to find a lot of counter sales and cash sales and one-time sales and whatnot in this category. And it's usually because most people put a sales counter in their warehouse, but they're still using all the infrastructure that's designed for this stuff. So the solution down here is really a policy issue, to recognize that your counter sales is really a retail operation. And so it should have retail pricing, not wholesale pricing. It should, no matter who it is, a big customer sends somebody down there and then complains later on that the price is the product. So I said, what on earth are you doing selling it to our retail store? You're a wholesale customer. You should be sending your order in through our order department, and we should be delivering it out to you. But no matter who they are, they're paying retail pricing. You're not paying commissions on this group. You're not extending any trade credit here. These people are, writing a check or bringing a credit card for the sale, and there's no free delivery down here. It's cash and carry, or if they want it delivered, they pay for the delivery. And since there's no trade credit, you don't have receivables and collections and all the rest of those costs, and you don't have a delay in getting your money. And so that can make this, that can move a lot of these regular minus accounts into the regular plus category. Last thing you'll probably do is move the most frequently purchased inventory in this category out in front of the counter so people can pick it themselves. So you're not hauling somebody off, picking a $1,000 order for an important account. Well, they spend 20, 25 minutes chatting with somebody that doesn't have that much to do that day, and they're kind of just looking for some interaction. So, or, looking up stuff in the catalog or whatever it is that they do that burns up an awful lot of expensive time that isn't paid for by the value of the sale that you're getting there. All right. Okay. Then so I think that's getting to the end of our time here. So I'm going to wrap it up and thank everybody for coming out today. Really happy that you've spent a few minutes with us to get some more insights on what to do with Waypoint. And if you don't have Waypoint already, what you could be doing if you had Waypoint. We'd certainly like to make sure that you do get Waypoint, so we'd be delighted to talk to you about that. I hope that you guys have a great day, and I really appreciate you spending some time with us.